Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life. And I have to say, I'm especially excited about our interview today. Allan Garry is our guest. And I've wanted to talk with a lyricist forever. We've talked to librarians and novelists and memoirists and so on. Haven't had a chance to talk with a lyricist. And, you know, music is such a part of our lives, and I have to confess, I guess I've been a little jealous. I always thought it would be so great to have written at least a song that resonated with our society, and not there yet. But this is my opportunity to talk with Allan. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's so great to have you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You're, I guess I'm going to start here.
Okay.
When people write, and I suspect write anything, song lyrics for one,
For sure.
you have to have something to write about.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a little bit of your bio,
Right.
and you certainly have some things to write about.
Oh, yes.
So you've done some traveling.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the Merchant Marines.
Sure.
What kind of experiences, does any of that filter into your work?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, that's a great point because I don't know if you've read the interview that was done recently with Ringo Starr and Rolling Stone, but he said he's not going to write a book. Now, isn't that fascinating? And the reason he isn't, because his book is his songs, just like my book is my songs.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
So my life is really reflected so directly in my work. There's no real separation. My life, my work, the songs themselves tell my life story. So we have that. And that's what's so important about it. I don't know if you remember the song that Ringo did, but it was something like, if you want to sing the blues, you have to pay your dues.
Absolutely.
And you know it don't come easy.
Right.
And that's the truth of it, you know. It's kind of like that song that was done. I think, who wrote Money for Nothing? I can't remember that. I guess it was Dire Straits.
Dire Straits, sure.
Money for nothing, the checks for free.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of mythology is that? If that isn't a myth, I don't know what is. Because there's probably nobody in the world that works as hard, or at least not a lot of people work as hard as an on-the-road gigging musician.
Right.
Because, boy, you pour it out every night for everybody
That's
if
tough.
you're doing your job.
A tough
Yes,
life.
indeed.
I have to say, I saw an interview with Sting one time. And it was more than an interview, it was a program.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I suspect at this stage he has money enough to do whatever he wants and could live whatever life he wants. And it seems to me that he and his family were living in a sort of a castle. And they were packing up. The family was going to go on a camping trip, but he wasn't. He was going to stay and work. And my admiration for him jumped up a notch because I thought, here's a guy, he's not doing this to be what you know, our definition of a star or something. He's doing this because this is him. This is what he's made of, and I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Absolutely. And there's one thing that I think is important for people to understand, especially the artist or the aspiring writer, whether he's a lyricist or he's writing books or whatever, and that is one simple truth, which is that writing is really about a point of view.
Great.
You know, when you express a point of view in your writing, that's what you're about. There's a lady that wrote what we call in the industry a standard.
Okay.
That lady's name is Amanda McBroom, and she wrote a song called The Rose.
Oh my gosh.
Some say, you know,
of course,
some say love is like, that one.
Sure.
Anyway, so that song became a standard because she got it to Bette Midler. She handed it to her directly on a cassette recorder.
Oh my
she
gosh.
knows 3 chords on the guitar.
That's all it takes,
Okay?
huh?
But she found those 3 chords, and then she took that point of view and expressed it in a way that resonated with her audience, which is what a songwriter is about.
Sure.
Now, there is a guy by the name of Chuck Chamberlain. Now, you may or may not have heard of Chuck Chamberlain, but he was the father of Richard Chamberlain, who was Dr.
Really?
Kildare for years on
course,
TV, if you remember him. Anyway, Chuck said something that was most interesting. He said that a songwriter or any kind of a writer is somebody that expresses a point of view, but if he can't do it for nothing, then he can't do it. And so I've applied that philosophy to my whole life. When I say that if I can't do this for nothing, then it's not something I can do.
In other words, you have to be passionate.
Exactly. The passion is extremely important.
I've said this before. It's not about the money.
No.
It's about.
Well, yeah.
Well,
that's
so,
what I'm falling into, is that thing you were
Yeah.
mentioning about Sting. That's real
Right.
important point that he made, because I've used it as my own acid test for whether I can occupy
Right.
my time with it or not. All the shows that I've done in the past have been for zero remuneration. I received nothing for them, whether it was hospice I was helping or the Santa Cruz Fellowship in Santa Cruz.
Right.
Whatever it was that was benefiting from the show I was putting together, I never got a dime out of it. And that was just dandy with me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now times have changed a little bit. I have to get something out of it for the amount of money and liability that I put forth for these shows.
There are costs involved.
Right. They're so much more expensive than they ever have been. But it's still the same thing. Even though I am receiving pay, I did it for nothing for
So
years.
two things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cliche in writing. Supposedly a famous author was asked why she wrote, and she said, "I didn't know I had a choice." And I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting when you ask people about why or what they do. I met a woman in Florida many years ago. Her name was Vivian Laudamore Rader. Now, Vivian was the poet laureate for the state of Florida.
Gosh.
I met her through a very strange combination of coincidences, but the reality was this. She had graduated from university. She had gotten her degree in poetry, all right, writing poetry, writing, and her final exam was a few words on a piece of paper. She was supposed to write 500 to 700 words, okay, for her essay question at the end of the course. What she wrote is, poetry is written on the wings of a butterfly.
Oh.
Her teacher cried,
Uh-huh.
and she said, "You are a poet." Now, there you are. You know, a completely sort of an alien concept for most people is to not write all of the words that you would probably write for an essay test, just to maybe impress your teacher or whatever, or at least be within the context, be within the rules, so to speak. She didn't follow any of that.
But isn't that what poetry, I have called poetry distilled language, and I think there's an example maybe. And that's why when you're writing poetry, and I'm sure lyrics as well, every word is so important.
Yeah.
You can't, I think in a novel you can get away with a little fluff or maybe something that could have been edited out and without diminishing the work, but it's in there and we're reading for pleasure.
Right.
But boy, in a song or
economy of language is also probably what we talk about more than anything else when we're talking about writing, and especially poetry. What we're saying is that you could probably say in less words what you really want to say if you consider. So that's why the editing part of writing is probably the most important part. It's okay to say that the words are very important, but it's also nice to know what isn't that important.
Oh, what a great way to say it. Well, that's like Michelangelo.
Yeah.
You know, when he's sculpting, you just take away everything that
isn't.
It's in there. The work is in there. You just have to take everything else away.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what you're doing.
I also make sculptures. I make wooden sculptures. And when I tell the guys that I work with and people that I'm trying to help understand building furniture and sculpture, whatever, I say to them, look, the wood will tell you what it wants to be.
Oh, okay.
But you have to allow that to occur. And you see, this is the quiet mind. And the quiet mind is not something the Western world has much acquaintance with. I don't think because they're at fault necessarily, but only because they haven't had the training in meditation and in focus. And they don't realize the quiet mind, the contemplative mind, is not just being introverted at all. It's really more so about being quiet enough to hear the silence.
That's wonderful.
You see? And that's what most people don't get yet. But that doesn't mean it isn't happening, because it is. Our world is transforming in consciousness. Even if we don't see it on the outside, most of us know it's happening on the inside. It's the inner which is growing and developing in our world today. And that's what we need to remember, because it's hard to look around at everything that's going on and say, oh, oh, what kind of a God or what kind of an anything would allow this to
Right.
happen or that to happen? Well, you see, we don't understand everything because why? We don't see the bigger picture, do we? We don't have an overview.
Right.
You know, we're not the guys in Grand Central Station, you know, knowing where everything is going. Because if you're
Right.
at Grand Central Station at ground level, what can you really see? Not much.
That's
Just
kind of a
lot
forest in the
chaos.
trees thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, when you write, and I love to talk about process, and partly for me, but also for folks who maybe are contemplating writing or struggling or just wondering how it's done. I think writers write, and you want to, I think it's great to have a routine. If you have the luxury of writing every day at the same time, or at least within the same general period, and so that it's a habit. But I wonder if, either with poetry or with lyrics, if that is that the same? I would think not. I would think that it's more of a something strikes you. It's an inspiration, and now you've got to go write that down.
Right. I think I know the exact question that you're asking, and of course it's probably one of the more difficult ones in writing. Like, what gets you to the page
Right.
is really what you're saying.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about, when I speak to that question, I always say the same thing. What gets you to the page is discipline. The
Okay, so it
discipline-
is. All
yes,
right.
It's the discipline to say, that page is exactly, like I said, going back to what is a song anyways, it's part of my life. Well, that's what this is. I'm going to see my life in that discipline. I'm going to know that if I get up and I'm willing to get to that page, right there, that tells me something about what? Who I am as a writer.
Okay.
I'm somebody that gets to the page, and I also surround myself with people that get to the page. I don't spend a lot of time talking to people about why they didn't get to the page.
Uh-huh.
What's that? You know, that's just a bunch of excuses and nonsense usually that I wind up hearing. Because anybody can get to the page if they want to. Okay?
But it has to be a
there's-
priority.
Right.
Yeah.
And it also has to be their sincerest and most complete heart work. In other words, if you aren't coming from a place in your heart where it's clear that this is what you're supposed to be doing, then why would you do it in the first place?
Right.
You know, there's no reason to. And Bill is an amazing writer. One of the reasons he's amazing is because he speaks to those kind of questions. What Bill Chamberlain will say is
I wanted to get his name in
something
there.
like
Yeah.
doing what you're made to do. And he doesn't just mean that you were created to do it. He means you can feel the drive to be
Right.
able to make yourself get to the page. 3 pages a day at a minimum. Free writing is probably the most important writing you'll ever do. It might look like a bunch of gobbledygook, but it
But that's
still
okay,
might be.
right.
Yes, exactly. It might be the most important writing that you ever do because it will get you to the part that you need to get to.
And it gives you something to work on.
Oh, sure.
If you're looking at a blank screen or a blank page, there's nothing to fix. You got to get something down there. You can fix it, but it's got to be there.
Right, exactly. Now, I give you a really good example of that. In songwriting, we talk about things like hooks.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you're just writing lyrics to get to a hook, it's not such a good idea. But if you take a hook book, which means that you have one tablet or notebook that's
Okay.
set aside for just hooks, then when they occur to you, you can write the
Oh,
hook
there you
down.
capture it.
And then
Yeah.
one day you might have a sequence of events that occurs that leads you to a place where the hook would fit. So you'd say, oh, wow, that's great. I'll give you an example of a good hook that I wrote many years
Yeah,
ago,
sure.
which is, the truth is bad enough. I don't need you, I go around making up stuff. The truth is bad enough. In other words, in the song, the perspective is pretty simple. It's a guy who finds out that his ex-girlfriend is saying a lot about things about him that are untrue. Not that they would ever do that, but let's suppose it did by some chance happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he's saying, I don't understand why you're going around here making up this stuff. Heck, the truth was bad enough in the first
Wonderful.
place.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about when we say a hook.
Yeah.
That hook resonates. You know, so something that works for people. And there's many songs like that that I've written based on a hook or something that occurred to me at a particular time.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of one other one. It was something like the worst of both worlds. Not the best, but
Sure.
the worst of both worlds.
Sure.
This is a song about a guy who finds out that his girlfriend leaves him for his wife. You see?
Oh my goodness.
Because he
okay.
thinks he's
yeah.
got it made,
Right.
right? He's got a beautiful mistress and he's got a lovely wife. Well, what happens is they meet in the supermarket, decide to run away together, and he's left there standing.
Well, that
going,
started as a song. It could be a movie.
It could be.
Yeah, that's
could
quite
very well could be.
Yeah,
But
that's
you see
something.
my point. Anytime you have something like that, it doesn't necessarily mean you'd ever use it, but at least you have a record of it. So you can go back to it in time and say, well, I think today is a song I might write off to that hook, right to that hook, because I've got it in my hook book, you see? And that also
Yeah.
helps you get to the page. You've
Sure.
got some impetus to get to the page. Plus the thing I said to you before about surrounding yourself with people who do the work. You see, don't just talk about doing the work, they do it.
Right.
Because you can see the results. And it's the same with me or any other writer that's worth his salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the author. He wrote The Ugly American,
Huh.
but he said, come to me in a second.
Sounds like a phrase that was way ahead of its time.
Well, it
The
was,
Ugly
yeah, and
American.
actually I think it was in the 50s.
Mhm.
But in any event, he is quoted as saying, I have no talent. There is no talent.
Mhm.
There is only the work.
Right.
And I think that's the thing.
That
you,
is.
You have
It
to
is.
go to work.
And you know, the talent
Graham
part of
Greene.
it, yes, Graham Greene,
Yeah.
Graham. The talent part of it has to do with something that's intangible anyways. So, I mean, it's not like something that you can manifest.
Right.
You know, you certainly can't sweat your way to installing talent.
Mm-hmm.
But you can instill in yourself a discipline that will help you create work, a body of work. Now, whether that work really reflects any genuine talent is really a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think I've said this numerous times on the show, and I've certainly thought it. Beyond some low level of competency, it's really an opinion, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There are certainly things that are popular in the sense that they've sold a lot that I don't care for,
Well, sure. And you know,
and the other way around.
exactly. It's interesting, too, because one of the phrases I wrote once, I always held on to, and the phrase is a simple one, but it speaks a lot to me. It says, I'm a recovering victim of my own opinion.
Oh, boy.
You see? Because many times... the
And
way-
that's poetry, too.
Yes, it is. But it's also something that's not for you to say that, but the reality is this, almost anything can really be poetry when you think about it. Vivian, who I mentioned earlier, who was the poet laureate of Florida, she wound up creating a body of work that was all about Florida, so to speak,
Okay.
a lot about it. So it was a
Okay.
very interesting body of work. But I wound up setting a lot of that work to music. It was the first time I really didn't do my own lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a whole body of work that was based on her stuff with music put to it. And one of the songs that she wrote, or actually it wasn't a song, now it's a song.
Right.
But the songs I put to music was a song called Liberation. And the song opens with, This I know, who know not much. Now isn't that a great way for a
Mhm.
song or a poem to begin?
Sure.
You know, I came alive at your first touch. Now what a great way to get to that rhyme. You know, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and this is how we can, and as far as I'm concerned, when I'm looking at something, I might not say it reflects the highest level of talent, but I can certainly evaluate and judge its beauty. Because beauty is in my eyes, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Right. You know, there's a great quote about poetry that I'm not even going to attempt because I can't
Mhm.
remember, but the gist is sometimes the words on the page don't make literal sense. Maybe you don't even know what they mean really, but there's something about the rhythm, the cadence, there's an emotion tacked onto that that you get the emotion even when they don't make literal sense.
Right.
And
It's true.
and this is an opportunity I think songs are an opportunity to do that. In fact, I actually wanted to, knowing that we were going to talk, I was thinking, as I said at the beginning, how important music is to us. We just love music, universally.
Yes, absolutely.
But when you read lyrics, so often you think, well, that, kind of in a literary sense, maybe there's a change of tense or point of view, or so that wouldn't fly in a novel, but you can do it in a...
Right, and you're also working with sound. And sound,
Sure.
it turns out, is extremely powerful in its own right. We found this out when the guy who actually wound up recording Elvis Presley eventually at Sun Records, Sam Phillips. What Sam Phillips got to start doing was recording funerals, believe it or not,
No, I didn't.
and wakes, okay? Now what he did was he understood that these sounds that were going to be at this funeral and wake were the sounds of people's voices. Now these people came together when? Hardly ever. But when they did come together, it was usually an event like a wedding or a funeral. So he would hide the microphone, and no one knew he was recording. He could do that in those days.
Right.
No one knew he was recording. So he got the sound of Uncle Vinny's voice. So after Uncle Vinny passed, we had a record of Uncle Vinny saying something to his niece Veronica at John's funeral. Do you see?
Right.
And so these became extremely valuable to these individuals because they never heard their grandfather's voice again except when they had the opportunity to listen to one of Sam Phillips' recordings. This became apparent again just how powerful the human voice and the sound of it is at 9/11, because there were two women who wound up getting a hold of all of the message tapes that were sent from the various planes during 9/11. When they got them, they did not sell them or find any way to capitalize on them. When they got the rights to them, they went ahead and talked to the people themselves about whether they wanted them or not.
I would guess that there was nobody that declined.
Well, there was a few people I think that did decline, but it was by far a minority.
Yeah.
And most of them did want
and okay, then in that case, I would say that it's probably too painful.
Right, and that's exactly what it was. But the interesting part of that, of course, was that these women went through no small effort and a tremendous amount of money to do that. You see, because just even acquiring those tapes and the rights was a very expensive proposition, dealing with all of the different internet, not internet, but the cellular, that was the vehicle, the cellular phone. So the cellular phone rights were very important. They wound up getting them, and they were able to go ahead and take those and give them to the appropriate people, which I thought must have been, my God, that must have been such a wonderful gift for these people to have at least some record. And, a lot of them, of course, were just saying something like, just know that I love you so much. And isn't it interesting that this is what people really do want to say? And very often I will say to them, well, wasn't that what the Summer of Love was really all about in the first place? Until it became sort of capitalized on by various marketing companies that began to take love cosmetics and love this and love that. But the truth is that when we tap into our love, we've tapped into what's real about us. And that's what's important. And that's what we were talking about in the 60s and in the 70s. And that's what we're still talking about when we can. Because it's difficult today. We have a lot of people that have become, what shall we say, jaded, or less than, what's the right word for it? Less than willing to go ahead and embrace an idea from the 60s that a lot of people equate with being a hippie. It wasn't a hippie thing at all. It was about the truth. And it's a funny thing, because when I saw Martin Luther King for the first time, we were in Selma, as I mentioned in my bio, and I heard him speak in this little church in Selma, Alabama, a small, little bitty thing. And I was up in this little balcony, and he began to speak, and the chills began to go up my spine. Oh, boy. And I remember thinking at the time, my goodness, I have a barometer for what truth is. I know what it is because I am hearing it right now. Because the now is really all we have. Anyway, and Martin was very cognizant of all that. A lot of people think he was just some little country preacher. Nothing could be farther from the truth. he and both Malcolm X were such intelligent and universally conscious and cosmically aware men. That may sound like a mouthful, but it's the truth about who they were.
Yeah.
Great people.
You were talking about love, and that really resonated. If you remember the beginning of the movie Love Actually, how that begins.
Right.
And I thought that was poignant.
I'm trying to think about there was something about, I know. The truth has the privilege to be believed. Did I mention that?
No.
Well, that's the most important piece of business out of that whole stuff that has to do with Martin and the way he spoke that day. The barometer for the truth and being able to discern it from what I normally hear during the course of my day. And most of us have what we might call a little sort of BS detector built within us. And most of us have it, and I have it too. And I like people around me to have it because I like to know myself when I've strayed, so to speak. But the truth is so important now. We need it so much. And we also need to have what? Some fun. And that's the truth of the matter right now for me anyways. You know, when I found out that Steve Miller, not to put Steve down because I wouldn't, got $759 a ticket to see him at McMenamin's Edgewater, I almost fell off the chair I was sitting in. I could not believe he would even think about doing something
now,
like that.
just in his defense, my understanding is that the artists don't always set the prices.
It has nothing to do with him, for the most part.
Right.
But what I'm trying to get at has nothing to do with Steve Miller. Yes, it has to do with the fact that he went on to say that everybody in the music business that he comes in contact with is either a gangster or an A-hat, as we say now, okay? Which I am not, of course. But my ticket to my show is $35.
Let's talk about that. I don't want to run out of time here.
No.
We've got a lot of ground to cover. So tell us about Celebrate McMinnville.
Oh yeah, Celebrate McMinnville was born out of a concept because somebody had said to me, McMinnville is the place where people's dreams go to die.
Oh, baloney.
And I said, wait a minute, that cannot be so. And I do not believe it so. So I have my new dream, which is something that most of us who have reached a certain age begin to understand. I mean, I've already got a house that's paid for, I have a car, I have all this stuff, you know. And so I don't need to go out and acquire anymore. What I need is to do something that's as fulfilling as it possibly can be for me. So this is the best show that I've ever put together because it has all of the talent that I think is some of the best in the world today, including Bill Champlin, his son, Will, his wife, Tamara, who also sings with the Sons of Champlin now. They've got We Three, who is the band here locally, the Humley School of Music is going to be there. They're going to show up and play some wonderful music. They are so talented, and they will be the band that will carry McMinnville forward. If McMinnville gets behind them now, now's the time to get behind them because these kids are going places. I know, I've been in this business for 52 years. I've seen a few things, and what I've seen about them, Josh, Manny, all those kids know it. It's almost like they sang together before they were born. Their harmonies are so tight. You know? It's amazing. But they will be there. Rick Stevens from the Tower of Power will be there. He's the guy I said that I helped get started in the business. He's an amazing talent in his own right, getting to be up there with us in terms of age. But boy, he can still put it down. He sings. He really sells a song. He sings You're Still a Young Man. He's going to come up and do that song for us. We're going to have a dinner show. We'll all sit down and eat. That's on Friday. You'll meet the band. You'll hang out. Hopefully, we'll all dance all night if we can, you know, or at least for as long as we can stand up anyways, you know. And what I mean is that we might get a little tired, but the reality is we're going to have fun. We want to see McMinnville come together over something. We don't have John Lennon anymore, so it can't be come together over him. But it certainly could be come together over Bill Champlin and the Sons, or any of the people that will be performing that night.
So, oh my goodness, we're about out of time. Bill Champlin, former Chicago?
Yes, he played 25 years for Chicago. We have to be a little careful there because the truth is that Bill didn't leave on the best terms, but the reality is this, he worked his butt off for them for 25 years. He went everywhere in the world, did everything they asked him to do, and didn't receive a lot of recognition or notoriety for it. But we intend to give Bill the recognition he deserves because the man has great talent And
Of
he also
course.
has a work ethic that's almost unequaled. The man plays and plays and plays and plays. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Around Midnight about the Dexter
Oh,
Gordon
yeah,
story,
sure, yeah.
but Dexter said something very important. He said, it's about the music. And that's what Bill is about, and that's
Right.
what I'm about, and that's what we're all about. We're about having an opportunity to play our music. We don't necessarily need to get $759 a person to play our music.
Right.
What we need is an audience that will listen.
I
And
think
that's
you're
what
going to
we-
get it here.
And that's what we want. We believe
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this.
So again, we got to wrap up,
Yep,
but
sure.
how can people participate?
They
How do
just
we,
go to eventbrite.com.
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite, BRITE.com.
Okay, okay.
They can get all of the ticket information. They can also go to my Facebook page,
Okay.
or they can go to Will Champlin's Facebook page,
Okay.
or the Sons of Champlain Facebook page,
Okay.
or tomorrow's. Lots of Facebook
No
out
excuse
there.
for missing.
No excuse for missing this show. Certainly very reasonable from a financial standpoint, and absolutely will be at least one of the best nights of your life. That I will guarantee, and if you don't agree with me, you can get your money back. But I don't think you're going to want it, because I think you'll agree with me.
And-
This
and-
night will
and
be
if I can
something
say,
very special.
That ticket price includes a dinner.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, the $99 is the ticket, or you can get a table. I don't even want to get into all that right now, but the main thing is this is October 13th and 14th. Save those dates. Be there. You can also go to both shows. You can have the dinner show and the arena show the next day. You just pay a small additional fee. I think it's something like $15 or
Okay.
something. You can see the second show.
Okay.
So we want everybody in McMinnville to come out. We think you can do it. If you can walk, you can come and see the Sons of Champlain.
All right.
You will love it. You
Great.
really will. Thank you.
Allan, this
Thank
has been
you.
an absolute pleasure.
So much fun.
Yeah,
really
this
enjoyed it.
This is great.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, thank you so much for watching. Stephen W. Long, and you can reach me at stephenwlong.com. Stay tuned. We got more. In fact, I think Bill Champlin is going to be a guest.
He should be
Here
here on the
shortly.
12th. He's going to be coming
Yeah.
in that morning. I'm going to pick him up at the airport. Won't be our first stop, but we will get here.
Great. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on The Writing Life.